Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the first in a series of WHO IBP Network virtual partners meetings. My name is Nandita Thatte, and I lead the IBP Network at WHO with my colleagues Ados May and Carolyn Ekman. On behalf of all of our IBP partners and member organizations, we are thrilled to have all of you with us today. We have over 650 people from around the world registered for today's event to celebrate World Contraception Day. Before we start, I want to flag a few features of the platform. You can find the agenda for today's meeting, as well as other resources, on the bottom right side of your screen. The meeting hub can also be used to connect with other participants. All sessions can be accessed through the auditorium, and note that there will be interpretation into French for the sessions with the exception of the Knowledge Cafe. You can find the interpretation at the bottom of your screen, the little globe. In addition, we encourage you during the breaks to visit the exhibition hall, where you can also view additional resources, including some videos from our partner organizations. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. James Kiarie, who will be providing some welcome remarks on behalf of WHO. Dr. James Kiarie is the head of the Contraception and Fertility Unit at WHO in the Department of Sexual and Reproductive Health and Research. He's a trained OBGYN, and prior to joining WHO, was an associate professor of obstetrics and gynecology at the University of Nairobi. He has over 20 years of experience in teaching, clinical practice, and research, and we are thrilled to have him with us today. James, thank you for your remarks.
So welcome to this IBP Virtual Partners meeting. My name is James Kiarie. I'm the unit head of contraception and fertility care here in WHO. Our unit is part of the WHO Sexual Reproductive Health and Research Program that also hosts the Human Reproduction Program, a partnership that leads in research on sexual reproductive health throughout the UN system. Our focus of our unit is on providing technical support, guidelines, and policy dialogue to member states, and this we do as part of WHO, but also supporting research and evidence synthesis, which we do as part of HRP. At this time, it's when we are celebrating the World Contraception Day, and within our unit, we'll be highlighting key aspects of our work in the areas mentioned. We will particularly highlight all the work we are doing with the partners through the IBP network, because as I will highlight later, this is an important work for us. We'll also highlight the technical support we are providing to countries to accelerate access to family planning services, particularly an approach we are using of South-to-South learning interventions that we are currently supporting between Nepal and Sri Lanka, between Uganda and Nigeria, and between Cote d'Ivoire and Guinea. We will also highlight the recently completed research on community and provider-led social accountability interventions in family planning, and a recently published scoping review on the impact of outbreaks in sexual and reproductive health services, a proposed framework for pre, inter, and post-outbreak situations. And we'll also highlight the normative digital adaptation kit for family planning that we have recently launched. And in the chat, we'll be providing links to some of these documents for those who interact with them further. For us in WHO, IBP is really very important, and we have invested in IBP since its inception in 2000 as a means to share information on WHO guidelines and research in sexual reproductive health. Over the years, it has been very good to see IBP pioneer in SRH and knowledge management, see us lead in SRH networking by providing a neutral platform to discuss SRH technical topics. And also it has been very good to see the engagement of local partners to inform implementation gaps and research. We in WHO value networks like IBP, because this is where we can hear from partners on how our WHO guidelines, tools, and resources are being used or not used, and what priority areas we as WHO should be addressing. In keeping and in line with the WHO transformation, we have prioritized increased focus on country level impact, particularly by working with local partners and WHO country offices. For today's meeting, it is exciting because it brings together partners to discuss important topics for WHO as we celebrate World Contraception Day. I will not go through the agenda, but will highlight 3 areas that are of great importance to us. First is the issue of health equity and rights when providing access to contraception and other SRHR services. Also learning what works and, more importantly, what doesn't work. Something WHO is really committed to support further, because in all the work we should do, actually learning and improvement should be at the center of all our activities. And the third thing is the local engagement, as we look forward to supporting the work of IBP and partners to see the shift of the power dynamics and better engagement with our partners working at local levels. This is very important. As I've highlighted, WHO transformation, we are really looking at country level impact. And for this, the local partners who are working at the local level are really very critical. Finally, we have all been touched by COVID-19, and it will be important to reflect on how IBP and partners have contributed. So these 4 areas will be particularly important for us, but I think we will be able to share the agenda and see the various issues that we will be focusing on today. So in conclusion, we are very excited to be part of today's meeting and really look forward to the discussions ahead. And I wish you all a productive and fruitful meeting. And finally, I would like to give special thanks and shout out to my colleagues, Nandita, Ados, and Caroline, for all their hard work in making this meeting possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Thank you always for your support. I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event, Poonam Muttreja. She is the Executive Director of the Population Foundation of India and has over 40 years of experience as a strong advocate for women's health, reproductive and sexual rights, and rural livelihoods. She has co-conceived a popular transmedia initiative called Main Kuch Bhi Kar Sakti Hoon, I, a woman, can achieve anything. Before joining Population Foundation India, she was the country director for the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation. She's also co-founded and led the Ashoka Foundation, Daskar, and the Society for Rural, Urban, and Tribal Initiative. She currently serves on a number of governing councils for several non-governmental organizations and is a regular commentator in India and globally for television and the print media on all sexual and reproductive health issues. Poonam, we are thrilled to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nandita, and thank you to everyone who's here for giving me this opportunity and willing to listen to me. I am particularly delighted and honored to be here today. It is so good to see and be amongst IBP global partners who have all contributed greatly towards advancing sexual and reproductive health and family planning across the world, and I salute you and celebrate you. In my career over the last 4 decades, I have worked extensively, as Nandita said, on women's rights and women's health. However, in the last decade of my work, when I joined Population Foundation of India, I was very excited to be working on women's reproductive health, but more especially on family planning. And let me explain why. I believe one of the most concrete ways to empower women is for them to have not only access to family planning, But by that, I don't mean contraception, but I mean they decide when, how many, and if they want children. And yes, many of you must be thinking of Cairo with that statement. For those of you who do not know the Population Foundation of India, I'd like to share that we are a 50-year-old NGO. The organization's journey has encompassed India's population at the national level on their reproductive and sexual health and development goals within a larger framework on women's empowerment, gender equity, and rights. Along the way, Population Foundation has built partnerships with the government, civil society, organizations, as well as the global development community, and I'm very proud to be a member of IBP, all of whom have had a role in ensuring that reproductive health and rights and women's empowerment receive attention that is due. Over the years, Population Foundation has worked to ensure that women are at the center of population policies and sexual and reproductive health programs. We have done this by promoting community accountability in health and by challenging the gender disparities. We have also done a lot of this through innovative behavior change communication strategies and campaigns. And you will soon be seeing a film on the exciting behavior change communication work we do. And please wait for that excitedly. India's family planning program, which was launched in 1952, is one of the oldest in the world, and most of you must know that. And the country's made tremendous strides in improving health and fertility outcomes over the decades. We must acknowledge a sharp decline in fertility ever since the adoption of the National Population Policy in 2000, which was inspired by the ICPD program of action. India's total fertility rate has declined substantially from 3.2 in 2000 to 2.2 today. All communities and religious groups have witnessed a fertility decline. This means India is well on the course of achieving population stabilization, with most Indian states having achieved replacement level fertility. Having said that, allow me to share with you the challenges of India's family planning and reproductive health programs and the unfinished agendas. First, India's family planning program is largely prescriptive and technical, focusing mainly on contraceptive provisions. While there is acknowledgement that social determinants of health and factors such as age at marriage, education levels are correlated with the use of contraceptives in health and population policies, they are often not factored into the design and implementation of the programs. Second, the data has not always driven the formulation of policies. This creates a conflict between ground realities and actual program implementation. Third, the lack of counseling and information on the management of side effects have led to a widespread acceptance of myths and misconceptions around family planning, resulting in limited contraceptive adoption, which has led to a 13% unmet need for family planning in India. And those of us who strongly believe in women's right to have as many children as she desires, 13% for a country like India in terms of numbers is huge. Fourth, despite global evidence, India did not introduce a new contraceptive for almost 4 decades. It was only in 2017 that 3 new contraceptives were introduced, and that too in a very limited way. Family planning continues to be a woman's responsibility. Even today, family planning is not a men's issue or a societal issue. India's family planning program is historically focused on women with little emphasis on involving men as enablers and beneficiaries. The lack of male involvement in family planning has placed an undue burden on women without any agency or autonomy to make their own health and fertility decisions. According to data from 2015-16, almost 40% of all men say that it is a woman's business and a woman's responsibility to avoid getting pregnant. And Indian women have, as per the 2015 data, Guttmacher Institute and the International Institute for Population Studies, which is an arm of Government of India, according to the study, 15.6 million abortions take place in India every year, and much of this is proxy for contraception. So you know what I mean when I say we have a long, long way to go, and just fertility decline does not capture women's life in reality. Limited male engagement and family planning is in India is evident from the fact that the uptake of male sterilization, which is vasectomy, is extremely low in India at less than 1%, while for women, sterilization is at 75%. Burdened by the sole responsibility of family planning, a large number of women opt for abortion, often, as I said, proxy for contraception. Strategies that prioritize male engagement in family planning are important for improving both men and women's reproductive health, and for advancing the equitable role of both partners and planning their families. Despite the overall progress and robust debates over family planning, women's health and their rights to contraception continue to be marred by wide disparities and inequities that persist in their access to healthcare. Sadly, access to health services continues to be determined by factors such as how educated is the woman, where she lives, her financial status, and the community she belongs to. For example, women belonging to scheduled tribe communities who are denied basic rights, access to family planning and other health schemes remain riddled with barriers, as is access to education and health for them. Now, evidence shows that there is disrespect and abuse are often normalized in the healthcare system, more so when women are concerned. This is further exacerbated by a lack of awareness of patients' rights, gender sensitivity, clinical empathy, and a humane attitude among service providers. Surprisingly, clients availing of services often consider this respect to be a routine in exchange for availing services. Not surprising, this mistreatment is closely linked to discrimination based on social factors and status like caste, race, tribe, ethnic group, education, and or poverty. Poor scheduled caste and tribal women face the highest disrespect and abuse in health facilities. And this is true for not just India, much of the world. The stigma and the shame associated with contraception and a lack of awareness on the part of women accessing family planning services often means they remain silent if they are ill-treated and coerced. Women are either not aware of the contraceptive options available to them or ways to seek remedy. And these numbers are large, so we have to highlight them. Population Foundation believes that women's health outcomes cannot be improved without addressing the complex social norms on issues related to women's health. And we have therefore made social and behavior change. Communication, Nandita mentioned, our flagship program, I, A Woman Can Achieve Anything. We not only spread awareness on significance of family planning and contraceptive usage, but also address complex social issues like child marriage, teenage pregnancy, sex selection, lack of male engagement in family planning and reproductive health, and unsafe abortion, to name a few. I invite you to watch a brief film on the program. Can we have the film, please?
गांधी जी कहा करते थे अर्जुन कि इस देश की आत्मा इसके गांव में बसती है.
Population Foundation of India is using the power of entertainment education to alter and transform deeply entrenched social behaviors. A series that entertains, provides knowledge, expounds ideal behaviors, and challenges deep-rooted regressive practices. Season 1 consisted of 52 episodes, dealt with age at marriage,
उसका मर्द कमलेश चौधरी आदमी नहीं है, राक्षस है राक्षस. जबरन उसके साथ शारीरिक.
sex selection, child marriage,
शादी करके आप उसकी जिंदगी को सूली पर चढ़ाना चाहते हैं.
birth spacing,
बच्चों के बीच में कम से कम 3 साल का अंतर होना बहुत जरूरी है.
and quality of healthcare. In Season 2, consisting of 79 episodes, Dr. Sneha decides to serve the community and improve their lives. It focuses on nutrition, reproductive health,
कॉन्डम के अलावा और भी बहुत सारे उपाय जैसे कि गोलियां हैं, कॉपर टी है,
mental health, hygiene, and substance abuse.
ये नशे का असर है, ड्रग्स का बहुत हैवी डोज है.
To get the message across to a large number of people, a 360-degree communication approach was adopted. Celebrities and Bollywood personalities supported the initiative. Perceptions about the ideal gap between two children increased. Women became more confident in accessing family planning services. They were less hesitant in seeking advice from health workers about contraceptives. Fewer women now believed it was okay to be beaten by a husband if the wife went out without informing him.
अब अगर आपने एक और बार अपनी बीवी पर हाथ उठाया ना तो नतीजा अच्छा नहीं होगा.
More women now believed that they can hold leadership positions in local government. The series continues to inspire young women to assert themselves and believe that they are capable of achieving anything.
आपने हमारी जबरदस्ती शादी की. हम तो पढ़ना लिखना चाहते थे.
क्या करेगी पढ़ लिख कर? प्रधानमंत्री बनेगी?
हाँ, बनूंगी मैं प्रधानमंत्री.
Thank you, Nandita and colleagues, for allowing me to show the program, whose evaluation findings across the season of this television series noted marked shifts in communities' behavior and attitudes, showcasing the impact and potential for social behavior change communication in bringing about transformative change. As an organization, we have used a few strategies to deal with some of the issues I presented to you a little earlier, or shared with you a little earlier. We have used all these strategies available to push for women's rights. I'm particularly proud of our association with the landmark verdict handed down by India's Supreme Court in the Devika Biswas versus Union Government of India case in 2016. The judgment took cognizance of a report robbed of choice and dignity that a fact-finding mission of CSOs led by Population Foundation of India drafted after 13 women lost their lives after undergoing sterilization in Bilaspur in Chhattisgarh. This was in 2014. The judgment drew on the report's recommendations to direct the Indian government to move away from a fixed target-based approach for family planning. The judgment called for the effective functioning of quality assurance committees at the state and district level for family planning. Finally, the judgment made specific recommendations to the government to improve the quality of services being provided under the family planning program. This judgment did much to advance women's reproductive rights. So what are the big issues driving the population debate in India at this point of time? By the end of the next decade, India will become the most populous nation in the world. And there is a knee-jerk reaction to that. This is not where India wishes to be first. And so the voices against on population control are growing. According to the 2011 census, 27% of men and 25% of women in the country are at the reproductive age group of 15 to 49 years. Adolescents constitute close to 1/3 of India's population. In other words, half of India's population needs universal, equitable access to quality, assured sexual and reproductive health services. We all know young people don't need family planning. They need access to contraceptives. They need access to quality. They need access to sexual and reproductive health education and information. This includes also greater choice of contraceptive methods, especially temporary methods, which isn't the current reality. I cannot but overemphasize the need for ensuring that a large cohort of young people have access to sexual reproductive health information as well as services, despite couples not only wanting to, but also having fewer children than before. Our population will continue to grow for some time. This is because nearly 1/3 of the population is between age group 10 and 24 years. While India's large young population has the potential to contribute to our development and economic progress, it also demands that we have a clear focus on their unique sexual and reproductive health needs. It is both ironic and unfortunate. While on the one hand, India is moving towards the goal of population stabilization, on the other hand, there is a widely held perception that India's population is exploding and we need to control it as resources are limited. This view reflects many myths, misconceptions, that continue to prevail, and the debate is getting sharper. The discourse around the introduction of coercive population policy gained momentum in the recent years. Most recently, the Law Commission in India's most populous state of Uttar Pradesh has advanced a draft bill that proposes stringent measures for population control in the state, calling for incentives for those who have 2 children or less, more incentives for those who have 1 child, and disincentives for those who have more than 2 children. Even as we witness rising demands for limiting our population through coercive policies, Population Foundation has taken on the task of dispelling the myths, the fog and misconception, and bringing facts into sharp focus through our sustained evidence-driven engagement with media decision makers alike. Our strategic engagement approach continues to emphasize that the country needs policies and programs that give primacy to women's autonomy and individual agency, rather than those that are coercive and against the principles of equity, which we all here believe in. Despite all our efforts and that of others, there are limits to what media engagement and strategic engagement can do. At the end of the day, political imperatives can and will override evidence. This is evident from the resurrection of the 2-child norm debate every few years in India. It is unfortunate that in spite of China doing away with the one child and then more recently the two-child norm and welcoming 3 children, India is continuing to argue for an end or argue for a two-child norm and stringent measures. Not everybody, but many. We certainly do not intend to give up. It has strengthened our resolve as we continue to ensure discourse on the subject. We mustn't lose sight of India's commitment on national and international platforms with respect to women's well-being and women's health. And I'm very proud to share with you that in spite of several states bringing out coercive bills, the government of India, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, made a statement a couple of months ago, which aligns with the Cairo Platform of Action that India has signed to and has rejected coercion. But in the states, we continue to fight the battles. But I'm very proud of the Health Ministry and the minister who spoke out on behalf of the ministry in India. The second big challenge I'd like to highlight in the opposition faced by certain groups in introducing new contraceptive like injectables and implants in the public health system. It is rather unfortunate that despite the positive scientific data and the lived experience of millions of women across the world, we have failed to change perceptions of several NGOs and academics who are deeply concerned about women's health and rights, but continue to oppose the introduction of some of the new contraceptives and acknowledge their significance in advancing women's rights. I raised this in my conversation and address today because, you know, Nandita and I, when we were talking about my address, one of the things she very rightly asked me to speak about is the failures. You know, we learn much from our failures than our successes. So while I've talked about the successes, I'd like to share I'd like to state that what I just shared is a failure, that we can't convince our colleagues, even when we have evidence. And so we need to put our heads together and see how we deal with our failures and make them into successes. And clearly, the two-child norm visiting us every few years, coercion visiting us every few years after we have signed India has signed the Cairo Declaration, and we have a good population, national good population policy, and at the state level too, the ugly head of coercion keeps coming back. Government and civil society organizations need to adopt a whole gamut of strategies, including but not limited to raising awareness, behavior change communication, community participation, and empowerment for adolescents. Change cannot be about merely offering cash incentives. Finally, let me bring to you what lies at the heart of our fundamentals. We are of the firm view, and our experience on the ground has strengthened our understanding that voices of women and communities who are underrepresented must be heard. It is only they who can determine what solutions will work for them. As part of the Population Foundation of India's 50th anniversary celebration in 2020, we worked with an award-winning journalist, P. Sainath, at the People's Archive of Rural India to document and present stories of women from rural India. 50 stories is what we are doing, and there are stories by women and about women, all women journalists. The 25 stories collected so far bring to the fore the obstacles and discrimination that women and girls face, as well as their triumphs under the most challenging circumstances. Here is an excerpt from one of the stories titled, "My Body, My Choice." I quote, "My name is Saira. I have been living in Harsana Kalan village for the last 20 years after my marriage. In this village, men do not allow women to have a voice. My husband too believes that a woman should stay at home. He says that women are safe at home as there are wolves roaming outside. I have two sons. Suhail is 16 and Sunny is 14. A few months after Sunny was born, I tried twice to get my operation," she's referring to sterilization, "without telling my husband. The first time when I went to the government hospital in my maternal village, the doctor refused to operate on me, saying that I did not look like a married woman. When I took my son with me to the same hospital for the second time, the doctor refused again, saying that I was not competent to take the decision on my own. Finally, on my third attempt, I was able to get an operation at a private hospital in Rohini. I remember I lied to the doctor, telling him that my husband is an alcoholic, but I don't regret it. I had decided to get the operation done at any cost. I was sure of one thing: I did not want any more children." Essentially, women's health is not only about technical solutions. It is not just about increasing the availability of contraceptive methods or somehow pushing or tricking them into having fewer children. This is about much more basic and important things. It's only when women recognize that they have agency and they feel free and enabled to exercise choices that we will be able to ensure that we meet our goals in the long run, and especially the women's goals and the family's goals. As long as our women are not free or able to act on their preferences, choose to stabilize the size of their families and fulfill their potential, we will not be able to fulfill our country's or our people's potential. The time is to act now, and this should begin with a concerted effort from everyone to empower women and strive for greater gender equality. It is my firm belief that it is only when every individual will be able to lead a dignified life and we all work collectively, never mind what obstacles come, we will survive and thrive and leave no one behind if we are working collectively. And I really welcome the fact that here we are as part of a collective at IBP led by Nandita very ably, and thank you very much for this opportunity. And I look forward to learning from many of you through the day today.
Thank you. Thank you, Poonam, for your very inspiring remarks, as always, showcasing the work that you and your team at Population Foundation India are doing, including the very measurable impact. I think that video was quite moving for many of us. It's very exciting to hear the progress made, but it's also, as you said, a stark reminder of the work that still needs to be done, including addressing the many social determinants of fertility, social norms, and other complex social and intersectional issues. I also wanted to just thank you for acknowledging the importance of addressing failures as an important way to learn and improve programming. This is a topic that we are hoping to tackle as part of today's meeting, but also in subsequent workshops. And finally, as one of our larger local partners as part of the IBP network, we're just even more motivated to continue to engage local partners in our work. The work you are doing is truly inspiring, and we know working with local partners like you and others is critical to contributing to the family planning, contraception, and sexual and reproductive health agenda moving forward. Thank you again for taking the time.
My honor.
Before we move to the sessions, I'd like to take a moment to just go through the agenda very quickly. As I mentioned at the start, you can find the agenda on the lower right-hand side of your screen. We will shortly move to concurrent sessions. There are 2 concurrent sessions that you can attend. The first on human rights and equity in SRHR programming. The second called Oops and Aha, Failures in Family Planning Program Implementation. Note that both sessions will have interpretation into French as well. After the concurrent sessions, we will have a break, at which time we encourage you to visit the exhibition hall, where you can look at different booths from our partners, or visit the meeting hub, where you can chat with some of the other participants attending today's meeting. After the break, we encourage you to come back into plenary in the auditorium for a session where we will introduce our newest IBP member organizations. We're very excited to have them share some of their work with us today. And then we will move into a more interactive session called the Knowledge Cafe, where we will showcase a number of IBP partner tools, and you will have an opportunity to visit 4 different tools, learn about them, interact with some of our partners, and share your experiences using tools. Later, after the Knowledge Cafe, we'll come back to 2 concurrent sessions again. The first, called Shifting the Power Within Global Health and the Role of Local Organizations. And this other session will be on adapting family planning programming in the era of COVID-19. Again, 2 very exciting sessions. There will be interpretation into French for both of those. Finally, we encourage you to come back for our closing plenary, where we will hear from our current chair in gender health, and also our incoming chair, FHI 360. And we will do the traditional IBP changing of the drum, which is a tradition that IBP has been doing for 20 years when we change chairs. And so we'll be excited to hear from our former chair and our incoming chair on their vision for IBP moving forward. And then finally, we will have some closing remarks from our colleagues at UNFPA, who have been an advocate and strong supporter, one of our founding members of IBP as well. So with that, I will leave it to you. We have a little bit of time before the concurrent sessions begin, but please do check out the different features on the platform, and we will see you in the concurrent sessions. Thank you.